Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final panel. I will do a brief introduction of the panel, and then I'm going to have everyone turn on their cameras. So for just a quick second, can you please turn your cameras off so I can share the screen to show another flyer? Thank you, you all. All right, great. So far today, we've had five amazing panels. We are so excited and so grateful for today. Thank you again for joining us at the African American Communication and Culture #Scholar Strike Conference. So first, I want to give you a reminder about our YouTube channel. So on this YouTube channel, and I have this flyer posted on here, you can see that we have 3 scholars highlighted here, but we have many more. We have many more scholars on here that recorded videos, and we have them uploaded. So please do not fear, go onto our YouTube channel and then you can review this tape and you can also view other videos as well. So we are going to upload the video for the panels today. And I want to apologize for one of our panel members used an explicit term. And I know that some of us have our children watching, so I truly apologize for that. And I will say that I do appreciate that scholar's enthusiasm. Okay, so whenever we upload the video of this whole conference, and this video will be uploaded tomorrow evening. When that video is uploaded, my tech team are going to go through and edit that video to make sure that that curse word is out. So on the subject of our tech team, I want to give a big thank you to all of our crew that work behind the scenes. So we have Miss Andronica Owens, Miss Asia Mew, Maya Edwins, and Sam Pugh. All right, so thank you to my behind the scenes crew. I also want to give a huge shout out to our conference organizers. So I'm Dr. Jasmine Austin, and my conference organizers also include Dr. Ron Jackson, Dr. Mark Orbe, and Dr. Janetta Sims. And Dr. Ron Jackson and Dr. Mark Orbe are actually joining us today for this final panel. Okay, so I do want to say and to remind everyone that this panel was started 8 days ago. So we had the call for the scholar strike last week, and then over the past 8 days, myself and my team of organizers, we got together and we built this conference. So I can't say enough thank you, thank you, thank you to my team in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. Thank you so much to every single panel member, and thank you to you for all of your patience and all of your support, and also for sharing this conference. Okay, so we thank you so much for that. So I am going to pass along this to our panel members. Gallery view. So if you can do me a favor, panel members, can you please show your screen? Perfect. Now we can see you. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a description of myself. So I'm going to do a self-introduction. And then after I give my self-introduction, I'm going to pass it on to the panel. They're going to introduce themselves, and then they're going to give opening statements. Okay, and then we'll get started. So
Dr. Austin?
Yes.
That's Dr. Orbe here. Your host has disabled my video, so I can't click on the video. That has to be done on your end.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'll have them do that.
Did you think it was the voice of God?
Look. And
Sorry.
I just thank my team. They did so good for like the past 7 hours. Okay, no, I'm kidding. My team is awesome. I really appreciate them. Great. Okay, so once again, my name is Dr. Jasmine Austin. I'm an assistant professor of interethnic and organizational communication. My research focuses on organizational socialization. So I focus on the conversations between marginalized groups and organizational members being had during the pre-entry or offer consideration phase. So I'm really into the communication right before we enter these organizations. One of my meaningful publications is entitled Fighting Mr. Sleepy, a metaphor for graduate student experiences, and you can find that in Health Communication. That is, once again, Fighting Mr. Sleepy, a metaphor for Black graduate students' experiences. And that publication is actually a story between myself and my dad, okay, because family is extremely important. So I will give a brief shout out. Thank you to my family for supporting me and for also being here. Okay, I'm going to pass the torch on to our next person, who is our next panel member, who's going to introduce themselves.
I don't know if that's me or not. I think I'm the first one listed.
Yeah, Ron, you are the first one.
Okay, so thank you all for being here. Just I have quite a few students who are watching this, and I've been excited to know that students and colleagues are actually sharing this YouTube with their families, which is really exciting to have them with their children nearby and talking through these issues. Um, just in terms of general comments, I think, where we are at this very moment is so very critical. Um, we are not the first ones to sit at the table to talk about issues of social justice. We know that there have been, for every generation, there's a set of new voices that have tried to explore these issues. Black Lives Matter is not the first time we fought for civil rights. But there are quite a few people that I think this feels very new for them. This feels very new to have a global set of protests. And it feels new to all of us to see it happening simultaneously in cities all across the nation. That feels very new. But I think at this moment, it's not just what people are doing to hit the streets that matters. It's also what matters for each and every one of us. What we are going to do when all those people go home, when the protests are no longer happening on the streets, what are we going to do in the classrooms and the boardrooms and the privacy of our own homes to help shift not only the dialogue, but to shift the behaviors? And so I think what's beautiful about this teach-in and what's beautiful about the National Scholar Strike is the way in which we are seeking to embrace this notion of what it means to love one another and our own humanity, but to do so actively, to do so boldly, to do so with a sense of an activistic spirit. So it's not just that we're saying I love each other and then in this kind of lightweighted way that we're kind of just walking away feeling this sense of love and joy. It's more than that. It requires work. It requires labor. And I really look forward to being able to labor alongside my colleagues to help move toward really radical, progressive, systematic change.
Thank you, Ron. Gina?
Hi, my name is Dr. Gina Castle Bell, and I just want to reiterate what so many people have said so far today. Like, thank you so much for putting together this panel. I'm grateful for you and the organizers, Dr. Austin. And I would be remiss if I did not say that it's a humbling honor to be sitting on this particular panel with so many people who I admire and respect, and without which I would literally not be here. So I'm just really grateful, to be asked. I'm going to tell you a little, I guess, regarding positionality. I'm a white female and white middle-class female. And I'm also the mother to a multiracial son who's about to turn 5. I don't know how that happened, but he's about to turn 5. And he's a Black presenting multiracial kid, and his dad is Black. We were married for 13 years. So anyway, that's a little bit about my relationship to part of the topic I'm discussing. My PhD is from George Mason University. I had the honor of studying with Mark Hobson for several years, and my research interests are kind of rooted in, they're ever evolving, but rooted in cultural context theory. So Dr. Jackson is sitting right here. And then cultural theory, Mark Orbe is also sitting right here. So I'm a little starstruck, but anyway, I'm interested in how language use facilitates racism. And then specifically as it relates to how white people engage intercultural communication with people of color and Black people in particular. And I am always learning. So that's just a brief introduction.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. Next, we're going to have Dr. Diggs. You are muted, Dr. Diggs. I will help you unmute. Dr. Diggs, can you unmute?
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
My finger wasn't working right. Thank you. Thank you, organizers. There are a couple of things I've heard today in all of this amazing information. One had to do with not being silent. And I think the quote was from Martin Luther King, your silence hurts, raise your voice. And another one that resonated for me had to do with this isn't just interpersonal, you know, this is about structures. And because I'm from an interpersonal family communication, I listened because all of this matters to me. And I see family, interpersonal as integrated with everything. It's integrated with the movies, you know, the movies we watch, the schools we go to, all of these messages from home are interrelated with our world. So I definitely see our interpersonal as being a navigator, a transporter, if you will. So that's really important to me. All of the voices that shared, and even with the institutional, I think our conference, our African American culture and Black Caucus can really take this moment to create the momentum around supporting our faculty and students who are continually unable to breathe in those institutions, and do something very systematically to support them to be aware, to be there. So what can we do? I think, of course, what we've done today is another publication, right? It's just in audio style. We can infuse students' voices and concerns as intellectual activity, because I was thinking about each semester I do a survey with students, and I just looked at a survey in which I asked students different things, and 7 of them, of the 20, explicitly expressed concern about race and systemic racism. And the 10 additional ones were concerned about other inequalities, such as home insecurity, internet access, poverty, COVID, things that we can definitely see as connected to race and ethnicity. So that's about 85% of these students at this community college, predominantly white, who are concerned about what we've been talking about today. So I think we're in where we need to be as faculty trying to make a difference. I also wanted to add that we need this collaboration is beautiful. What did we learn? We can't wait for agreement by authority. Okay, so I wrote my letter. I call it the after George Floyd was killed, I wrote a letter to my president, and of course I got the standard "we're sorry" kind of response. But you know, organizations do what organizations do. They don't want to get in good trouble right now, okay? So we're the ones trying to get into this good trouble. Power conceives nothing without a demand. It never did, it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Frederick Douglass. So here we are. We are using our words, we're using our bodies, we're using our platforms, we are using our ability to protest and say enough is enough. So collaborating with our colleagues, students, and community allies to support each other and assist in the work of recruitment and retention, like moving them beyond deeds done solely in words. I think I heard someone say that today. If you don't plan to develop and keep, I say don't hire, and have a DGR as to why. That means damn good reason. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Diggs. Dr. Orbe?
I think you can hear me because I didn't mute myself after I kept the video on. I was trying to be quiet though. So my name is Mark Orbe. I'm a professor at Western Michigan University, where I'm in the School of Communication, and recently have accepted a position as a faculty fellow in the Office of Institutional Equity. I've spent the majority of my career, professional career, 24 years now in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I think, you know, my takeaways, and I've stayed all day and listened to all the different presenters and really tried to engage. And many of us were engaging offline through our phones. And one thing that really stuck to me is something that actually all three of my colleague friends have mentioned. And it's this idea of this multi-generational approach. So one of the fellow presenters sent me a text, and it said something. This is what it said: "The generations are shifting as we speak." And then later he said, "We're inspiring the next generation." And I added back, "And they're inspiring us." You know, there's a song, Glory, Oscar award-winning song from a movie, Glory. And there's a line there that I oftentimes quote. And the line says, "We need the wisdom of the elders and the young people's energy." And for me, there's a point of power there. So, you know, I just think about the ways in which we're doing this because it's something that matters to us. And as we inspire, we also get our inspiration from others. So I oftentimes tell my students how inspirational they are to me as they tell me that I'm inspiring them. So it really is this point of synergy. And what I have felt throughout this entire day, from the beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I felt that, and I was really humbled by the energy. So, you know, as I look at the screen, and Jasmine and I have just met 8 days ago, but I've known the rest of you on the screen for at least 10, 20 plus years. And all of us are at different points. You know, we have someone who is teaching adjunct. We have a newly appointed PhD person. We have people going through tenure, I believe, who have already been tenured. And, you know, we have people at various stages in our careers. And for me, I think what I really draw in a very humble way is that that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. And we all have a role in this. And I have been searching for my role for months now. So when I saw this present itself from a colleague, I thought, okay, this is something that I think is going to be my role. There's a story about a man who was a nature lover and was watching a caterpillar build a cocoon and then try to work his way out of that cocoon to emerge as a butterfly. And as he watched for hours and hours and hours, the caterpillar kept going through a very small hole towards freedom as a butterfly. And at one point, the caterpillar stalled, and the man who was watching this unfold became very concerned, and to the point where he actually went and snipped a little bit of the hole to make it bigger so that the butterfly could emerge. And the caterpillar first stopped struggling and then started to struggle again and emerged from the cocoon as a butterfly. And then the man watched as the butterfly could not lift off the ground, because what he didn't realize was there was a purpose in the small hole, because it actually took the liquid off of the wings of the butterfly that then allowed the butterfly to be lifted up into the air. So he actually watched as the butterfly stayed on the ground and ended up getting eaten by a bird. This whole 2020, I have felt like that caterpillar, where I have struggled and I don't know what's next for me. I'm looking to see what the next 10 years of my career are going to look like. And what I've come to realize is that I'm not comfortable in the struggle, but I'm comfortable with the struggle. And for me, this is part of my emergence. And I'm just looking to see how, with synergy with the young people that I surround myself with, what's next.
Thank you, Dr. Orbe. I love those. I love butterflies in general, so I really appreciate that description, that story you shared. Okay, I'm going to go over to Dr. Bell and then Dr. Jackson, and I want to start off this conversation by asking, what is a message that you heard today that stood out to you as powerful and as necessary pieces of information?
Oh, I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So I stayed all day, and the first meeting today, like where Dr. Johnson said, like, find where you fit and be anti-racist there. I just found it to be such a profound message, because a lot of times, like, I'm like, wiggling around trying to figure out like, what can I say? How do I like offer support in these different contexts? And it's kind of like an ebb and flow. But where that really touched me is later, is it Dr. Huffman, Tim Huffman, talked about stepping up and stepping back. I just loved that so much as another white educator. And the most influential part of it to me is when he talked about like an example where he didn't step back, where he stepped up too much. And gosh, like, I think that those are important experiences to share, because it just reminds me, you know, like, as an ally, we're going to fail. And like, part of that is like getting up and learning from it and doing the hard work after, like learning how to listen better, learning how to recover, learning how to manage the dance of that stepping up and stepping back. And it just, it really impacted me. So like, find where you fit and be anti-racist there. And for me, that is like, with talking with white people, when do I step up? When do I step back? How do I support my students of color on campus?
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Bell. I'd like to add to that before Dr. Jackson goes. I think that was a really great point, and I think the way we know when to step forward and when to step back is through communication, which is why this conference is so important. So simply asking, what do you want? What do you want my role to be in this? Where do you want me to go? How can I best help you? And then checking in the middle of help. In the middle of helping, you can ask whoever you're helping, hey, am I coming off too strong? Do you need me to back off? I mean, you're doing a great job, so what can I do to help? So I definitely think communication is a key aspect when it comes to stepping forward or stepping back. Dr. Jackson?
I think for me, part of the lesson learned today is about both labor and healing. There's a lot of labor that goes into addressing these issues of social injustice, and I think, you know, we've heard about from Mark Hobson about killing Black bodies and this whole notion of feeling disrespected and the pain that comes with that. And I have to say that in my career, I've had ups and downs in terms of the pain of trying to navigate what it feels like to have people that you trust as your colleagues not step up for you, not stand up for you, not take up for you when you feel like they should, because they seem like really nice, well-meaning people, but they're not willing to be bold enough and courageous enough to stand on your behalf when they know that what they're seeing is wrong. And so I think there's pain in that, and I think that when you've experienced that pain, it sort of renders you paralyzed for a moment there, because you're trying to grapple with what do you do with an environment system that does not allow reprieve, right? And so you're just constantly searching for ways in which you can insert yourself. And it's not that we don't do the work, right? It's not that we as people of color, as marginalized group members, are not competent or not capable, right? It's that even when we try our hardest, even when we try doubling more than what it seems like our colleagues are trying, we get the setbacks that come with that by virtue of nothing else than the xenophobia, the kind of fear of a stranger, right, that comes with this. And it really is frustrating. And so I think the self-care, what I'm hearing from people like Amber Johnson, is about healing and is about self-care. What do we do with that? I mean, how do we take care of ourselves so we don't drain ourselves out? Because we know post-traumatic racial stress is serious and it's real. And it's the same kind of stress that can oftentimes overtake those people who are social justice warriors, no matter what the issue of social injustice is. And so I think those are the two big ones, is just thinking about how do we deal with the labor and doing the work while also realizing you don't always get rewarded. And when you get kind of smacked in the face, what do you do with that? And how do you help yourself to get back up and then restore yourself so you can continue to fight?
Awesome. I think those are extremely important points, especially self-care. We're navigating self-care especially differently during the pandemic. So I definitely urge us to try and continue our self-care and to find new ways of self-care. So thank you, Dr. Jackson. I want to invite you, the Facebook viewers, to join this conversation. So if you have any questions that come to mind, please add that to the Facebook comments, and I'll be sure to, or at least I'll try my best to, ask these questions to the panelists in real time. Okay, so while you're thinking about questions and putting it into the Facebook comments, I want to ask another question to the panel. And maybe we can start with Dr. Diggs. Okay, so this question is, what is a vital piece of information or a vital message that has not been shared during previous panels today?
I think the vital piece of information is sort of this deep question remains as far as the struggle. And it is, who can still pass as non-Black or non-brown and have this additional weight out of the death that we're seeing? Who can pass as non-Black or non-brown, even if we're talking about these additional identities that we embrace? Is that a question that, I mean, we're trying to get ourselves out of that question, but right now, to me, that's a question.
That is awesome. Dr. Bell, I noticed you were nodding your head. Do you want to add on to that?
Just, I can't help it when she said, who can pass as non-brown? I don't know. I couldn't help but I'm so frustrated with the Jessica Krug stuff. I know Shinsuke commented about it earlier, but it's not really related exactly when she finished the question. But I guess related to that, it's the context of where matters. Because, and I think in certain spaces, like I'm observing myself with my son that, up here in New York City, I teach at St. John's University. Black people know he's Black. Most people know he's brown. It's very clear. When we're visiting family in Georgia, people struggle to place him. And I observed that, like listening to people talk today also, that like the way that we're approaching Black Lives Matter and being an ally or teaching and building up like our students in the classroom is different based on the place that you are. So like, teaching in New York City is very different than, when I was at George Mason in Virginia. It's a completely different context. So, but I think passing in those, I obviously know nothing about passing, but I think that passing in those places, what I can see looks different based on the location that you're in. So,
Dr. Austin, if I may, so Dr. Bell and I have talked about this the Jessica Krug thing, and I think you're wrong that that's unrelated. It is related, and I want you to share with us why you think it's right. Because remember, you and I have talked about this. Why do you think it's so wrong for her to have done what she's done? Because, and maybe people don't even know who she is, so maybe you can talk about that. But I think that's so important for people to hear who are listening to this teaching today.
Thank you for that, Ron. Jessica Krug is an associate professor. I forget the division at George Washington University. And she recently wrote an op-ed coming out, if you will, that she has lived her whole life as a Black professor, but this is an identity that she co-opted and stole. And that she's actually a white woman. She's Jewish white woman, and I forget what Midwestern state she was from. But why I found it so offensive is that I was so offended because I looked at her and I thought, you as a white person can have interest in this work and you can really want to do something to, like, you can be passionate about it for different reasons, but you didn't have to steal it, like you just had to be willing to do the hard work, which means you're going to put in time and energy for years and years and you're not going to be the center of attention. But it's like she skipped all the ally work and all the learning and all the failing and all the relearning and growth that it takes, like, to constantly like be an ally and actually stand in this like with people of color, I feel like she was like, oh, nah, I'm just going to avoid it so that I don't have to have that uncomfortable conversation in the classroom with the syllabus, the comfortable pedagogy. She didn't want to have uncomfortable pedagogy. And so for me, I was like, oh, she skipped it. She just thought she'd circumvent that because it went to her, because it helped her purpose. But that's so frustrating because then as a white person, like I'm constantly working like to create and build trust. And, you know, I make communication mistakes myself and still am learning from it now. And so when somebody does something so obviously just like so obviously offensive, it makes it harder for other white people to step into the space. And there are white people who came before me who have worked very hard so that we could be included, and other people of color who partnered with allies. And so I just feel like she didn't take it seriously. And it irritates me because we needed her to be white and interested and an ally and to learn how to like be an ally, not to lie and steal and co-opt. So
thank you, Dr. Bell. Also, thank you for bringing up that recent event, and thank you for explaining what that event was for all of our viewers. Dr. Orbe, would you like to add to that?
So I'll go back to my earlier comments on today. You know, as someone who strives to be culturally competent in his communication with others, my focus is always on understanding. So as soon as I read that account, I wanted to understand why. You know, part of her account was to distance herself from a previous situation, environment, network. You know, I had similar, and I've written about Rachel Dolezal, who now has an African name that I just can't pull up immediately. So, you know, and I saw a Netflix special documentary on her. I got insight. So I want to understand why. You know, I want to understand people's rationale for making those types of decisions. You know, I've had a number of conversations over the last couple of days with other individuals who are biracial or multiracial like myself and racially ambiguous. So people can't often discern what our race and ethnicity is just by our body performances. And it puts us in an interesting position because then people directly and indirectly kind of want to ask us about our heritage. And especially those of us who are pretty explicit in embracing, you know, who we are. And so for me, I'm always looking for understanding. I think it's interesting. I want to know why at this point in time she felt the need to do that. Was it guilt? Was it shame? Was it, you know, I'm really interested in understanding the why behind that. You know, one of the things earlier people talked about, Dr. Diggs, we'll get you in, she's ready. One of the things that people also talked about in terms of what was missing, for me, what was missing was an honest recognition and discussion about the self-care strategies that we're using for ourselves and others. You know, our colleague, Dr. Catherine Squires, has a great YouTube video on yoga as this kind of radical self-help or self-care. And, you know, I wondered as I reached out to people to participate in this, how many weren't ready because they wanted to practice self-care. I have really become pretty astute by saying no to things. You know, is it going to serve me? Is it going to serve my spirit? Is it going to serve, you know, the larger goals and not someone else's agenda? And now I'm wondering, as I reach out to others, you know, how I need to make sure I'm honoring their desire to also practice self-care. What's really interesting, and I don't know if viewers will be able to relate to this or not, but sometimes my self-care is writing towards academic publications. It's the way in which I express who I am. For me, this day has been about self-care. I needed to do something out of the norm and disrupt what was going on at my university. This is our second week of classes. I announced, and I was very adamant. I think my post on the listserv is kind of what started this. I was very adamant to everyone who would listen that for 2 days, I'm doing a work stoppage. I'm not doing any work related to my university, and I'm going to focus on racial justice. Tomorrow, I'm involved in another activity on our campus virtually where we're going to be doing something similar with presentations. And at one point, I wondered about what the consequences were going to be for this. I haven't heard any yet. I don't know if they're coming or not. For me, though, I had to do something. So self-care looks really different for different people. And I think that we need to create spaces where people can talk about, like Ashley Lambert said, activism takes a number of different forms. So doesn't self-care. And I think that's really important for us to do and to talk about, especially given all the emotional labor that we are investing in these things.
Thank you. I wanted to say, in addition to what Dr. Bell said, I also am thinking about the people I talk to in my community or family, and sort of this passion, this negative passion about who can act their way out of systemic racism. Sort of like, you know, because we've heard that story, or we've heard the trope that, you know, I have the skin, I can't get off. I'm who whatever racist or hate person sees, and if they have this thing about hating that body, or if they can pick up on some ethnic appearance and have disdain for that, then, or even if they pick up something that they call a sexuality bias, you know, these kinds of things. I'm looking and hoping for the day that these questions won't be asked, but it looks like for a while we will entertain them from time to time. And especially the one that where there's that distrust and disdain for someone who might be an ally who's not black or brown. There's still that distrust and trying to figure out, can I really trust? Because the hierarchy of the skin color itself precedes everything else for them.
Dr. Diggs, that's a really great point.
Question.
Yeah, when you mentioned the hierarchy of skin color, that definitely brought it into my mind colorism. And so even as a lighter skinned Black woman, with longer hair that my curls do what I want them to do, right? I have a privilege in that, so I definitely understand that there's colorism and the hierarchy when it comes to race and color. So Dr. Orbe mentioned one of the videos that we actually have on our YouTube channel. So that was a great plug. Thank you for that. Dr. Squire's video is already available on our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
so
I did that.
You are welcome to. Oh, sorry, Dr. Diggs, did you do that?
No, I clapped.
Oh,
I said
okay.
I saw that one very early and I was doing my breathing.
Good. Yes, it was definitely a breathing techniques for radical self-care. So go ahead and check that out. Okay, I want to ask another question. How do we sustain our community and interpersonal efforts? Okay, so all day today we've been talking about strategies for change, different programs that are being implemented. We're thinking about at the organizational level and even at the interpersonal level. So my question to the panel, and we're going to start with Dr. Jackson. My question to this panel is, how do we sustain our community and even interpersonal efforts? How do we keep those going? How do we sustain them?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, thinking about how we sustain our community and interpersonal is more about like, how do we actually build or maintain a sense of connectedness?
Yes, definitely the maintenance. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I think, wow, that's a loaded question, right? I mean, because we live in a society where people live right next door and don't know their neighbors, where people pull into their driveways and just kind of like, you know, as their driveway, there's a garage is going down, they're waving to their neighbor, right? So I'm not sure that we actually are sort of used to that. I think it requires us to really be open to that. And I think even within our own organizations, our own faculties that we belong to, our own universities, that there isn't always community that is about building a sense of connection to one another, that sometimes we find ourselves as isolates. And we get to be that way because something traumatic happens or because something happens that doesn't respect and honor us. And we're like, you know what, we're out. So how you do that work is really important. I think it does require that people have to be actively interested in trying to build community with one another. I think that, you know, I'm kind of going out on a limb here, but I think that if I were a white male in the academy, I probably wouldn't feel a pressure to have to build community with people of color because everybody looks like me, so I'm cool. I'm good. So basically, I think that there's got to be something inside of you that drives you to want to build community with people of color, and to do so knowing that there is a possible risk that you might get rejected. Because guess what? If you're white, you're not probably used to that kind of rejection. You're like, you know what? I have my own networks. People look like me. I can just stay in my own enclave and I'm good. And so getting outside of that zone and trying to build that kind of community can be very risky for people who are like, why should I take the risk? What payoff do I get out of it? So, I think there's some fascinating pieces there around how we think about our identities and how we think about how we build connection to others. I just don't think that it's become as natural as we might suspect to embrace and love one another. We're kind of taught to undo that as kids, right? As a kid, you're used to just playing with the kids on the playground. Everything's cool, everybody's the same, or I just want to kick it. But then as you get older, you realize that skin color matters and other kinds of difference matter, and you start treating people differently. And I think once we unlearn that love, the work to try to get back there again is kind of difficult.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely takes effort. Panel members, who else wants to go?
Yeah, so, John T. Warren, late professor in comm, used to say, if you don't find community, create it. And that really stuck with me because I am one who has always worked at predominantly white institutions of higher education, higher learning, and have oftentimes found myself on the margins and not embraced at the center. And I've navigated that in a number of different ways throughout the course of my career, hence why the co-cultural theory was created. It was helped me to make sense of the strategic decisions that I've made at different points in my life. What I think is interesting, though, someone mentioned Bell Hook's Teaching to Transgress, and that was a book that I also got as a grad student and was transformative in terms of how I approach teaching. One thing that she writes in another book is this idea of the margins as a space for radical openness. And I found that really empowering because what I learned from her discussion of that idea is that if you're always seeking to be accepted at the center of an organization, you oftentimes have to do certain things like assimilate, like to converge, like to find acceptance from those who are at the center. And when you no longer have that as a goal, there is a spirit of radical openness where I'm not trying to satisfy those folks at the center. So my decisions aren't informed by people's reactions or approval or disapproval of what I'm doing at the margins. And so for me, that's really radical. So as I have created community, and community has found me sometimes, oftentimes I've actively and mindfully and strategically created community for my own self-care. It may not be in my home unit, my school, but it is across the university or in the community or different places. And I will tell you, sometimes my community is me, that I need to just spend time with myself and make sure that I'm okay as I try to be a good community member to others. So that whole notion of finding radical openness on the margins really spoke to me because yes, we need community. And again, as John T. Warren would say, if you don't find it, create it. And I'm paraphrasing, but that concept was there.
I will echo some of what's already been said about community. I'm a parent, and I can remember when I think I met Mark in Kentucky, and I was creating community. I was not only finding a daycare, but church people that I could connect with who were healthy for my family and that I could connect with. I think our division and caucus is one of those places we'll continue to promote our connectivity. I'm in a neighborhood in which I connect with people who are distributing the census. Music is another emphasis, I use music a lot to connect in my classroom. So I'm going to share Miriam Makiba's song, We Live for Love, just a little bit of it. She says, open your hearts for our children and the universe to love and hold, embracing the good in those who feel they must give of themselves, because we live for love. And love lives through all. Let the rainbow rain showers on you, raining down all colors for all, sowing seeds and dreams of the future, thought of love and peace forevermore. I think we, as people who have vision for community, the good, we have these imaginations about the world, and we're trying to impact. I know I am. And so for 20 years, when I was living in Ohio, Kentucky, all of that, I created an organization with one of my friends. We were co-partners of Prevail Respect. It was a long acronym, promoting role, empowerment, and values through interaction and love, reclaiming the essence of survival through effective communication today. So even though Prevail Respect as an organization went dormant in 2015, it's something that, because of my desire for community and to show critical goodness, love doesn't just mean kumbaya. No, we learn in families that love is deeper than that. It's critical, it's hard, it's tough, but a thought of love and peace forevermore, I think that's what sort of energizes, and it is hard work, but I think we're up for it because we want to sustain our community and even our interpersonal relationships.
Thank you, Dr. Diggs. Dr. Bell, would you like to add to that? To that question of how do we sustain our community and even interpersonal efforts?
I just like a couple of things came to my mind, mostly because I did this imperfectly this year, but or like I feel like I have done it imperfectly, but it's like recognizing, I think this is something again that Dr. Huffman said, am I the person to respond to that? Because like part of engaging in community and being an ally is like knowing who you're allied to. And that doesn't mean that you're not like not available for other people. It just means like maintain your deep friendships, maintain your relationships. And for me, I'm maintain your deep friendships, maintain your relationships, so that like when you ask like how are you doing, what can I do, or just how are you doing, would you like to listen, I'm here, I can listen, that you're talking to the right people, and then sometimes like knowing when to just like step back and be present. And then I just wanted to add another thing, like maintaining community as an ally is understanding like that there are hundreds of years of distrust of white people, and I have to take that on the mantle, and I don't get to take it personally. It just is what it is. Like, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and show up and show up and show up, and let the people who are close to me, like thank God for all of my mentors and friends who are people of color and other white allies who have like nudged me or said, confronted me. But like, you have to just show up, try to do it better the next time. Like, and when something happens, like in mindful intercultural communication, you need to address it like right in that moment. Like you don't get to go home as a white person and be like, oh, I can't believe I said that. It's like right now I have to get out of this comfort zone, because the years of distrust, they're present, and it's just part of like what comes with wanting to be an ally. It's not just standing on the front lines with people. It's like doing the work, and that means you're going to be rejected. That's okay.
Just try
Dr.
again.
Austin, if I can, we have a couple minutes left, and I'm hoping that this isn't overstepping my role here. You have played such an instrumental role in allowing all of us to give voice to our perspectives, our concerns, our strategies, our lived experiences. And I would love for you as the organizer who really, you've been commenting, but I want to know how are you feeling about this effort? You are a newly minted PhD, I think in 2020 or 2019, very soon.
December.
2019, I think. That's right. And you started your position in 2020. What does this conference mean to you? And what has it done for you and your belief in your chosen field of being a communication professor?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Orbe, for giving me this platform, in addition to us giving everyone else this platform, right? So I will mention that I completed my dissertation, defended it successfully in December, and I started my first assistant professor position in January, which, was perfect timing for the pandemic, right? So I didn't even have a faculty ID yet. I'm not even set up yet. But I will say that this platform is extremely important to me because, like someone mentioned earlier, how we have different generations on this panel right here. So me as an incoming assistant professor, and then others who are already tenured, those who have been chairs, Dr. Jackson, who's been the president of NCA. I think this is so important to bring in a lot of different perspectives. And I think, and I'm actually going to say what my closing remarks are going to be before I open the floor for closing remarks. My closing remark would be that we are all here on purpose, right? So I rarely check my emails on the weekends, but last Saturday I checked the listserv and saw this opportunity. I jumped on it. And because I rarely ever check my emails on the weekend, I know that me being one of the main organizers for this conference was on purpose. All right. If you even saw the sharing on Facebook, you are watching this on purpose. If you chose to be a panel member, you are a panel member on purpose. So I would say that I guess my main thoughts are that, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, of course, but I think my main thoughts are that we are here on purpose, and I am so grateful for this platform. So thank you, Dr. Orbe, for giving me the opportunity to cry on national live stream. I'll make sure that my tech person edits that out, so no one's even going to hear this message. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's
complexity of our tears, right?
I know,
Mark?
I know. Just like we were all saying, this is emotional. This is hard work. This takes a lot of strength, a lot of courage, and it takes an extreme amount of patience and forgiveness, right? So since I've given my closing remarks, I'm going to open the floor for each of my lovely panel members for this final panel. Can you give me 15, 20 seconds of a final thought? Okay, what are your final thoughts before I wrap us up? Can I start with Dr. Orbe, since he put me on the spot? And then we'll go to Dr. Diggs, Dr. Bell, and then Dr. Jackson.
Do stuff on purpose. I try to live a purpose-driven life. And what I've come to understand is my purpose when I first started in this journey in the communication field is probably not my purpose now. So as that caterpillar emerges into a butterfly, I'm looking for what my next purpose is.
Great. I'm all about lifespan, development, evolution. And it's interesting that at the same time we're having this intense, powerful, beautiful, riveting conversations that are so impactful, we go back to places where we still are silenced. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me. And when I say that, it's not because we might not speak, but we are not getting a response. But we know that we are here for a purpose. I love that. And I'm embracing my purpose. And I will walk in that, knowing that I'm going to put it out there now. It's up to you if you want to volley back, but I'm moving forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, I'm going to stay with the theme that Dr. Orbe started. So I'm going to say step up and step back on purpose.
All right.
And then also, and this started with the first morning panel, which is then also like find your place and be anti-racist there. And I, emerge, like let yourself emerge and let yourself grow. And sometimes those places are gonna change. You might have started somewhere and you're moving somewhere else. So go with it on purpose.
And I'll just say that I want us to all know, the people that are watching, that social justice requires an ethic of care, but also love. You can't do the work of social justice without actually considering and thinking about the people that are affected as an extension of yourself. If you can't imagine them as an extension of yourself, you're not going to fight for them. And if you do fight for a second, you won't fight long because you don't have a personal investment. So it's so important for us to make sure that we consider what it feels like for other people to be an extension of ourselves and to fight for them in the trenches because they're an extension of ourselves. It requires love. And I really hope that with that love that you give, that it also is accompanied with authenticity, because we need it. We need people who are authentically by our side, people who are authentically standing in the gap at a time when social justice is tearing apart people's lives and their families, and it's fatal. It's fatal for people. People are dying as a result of injustice. So this is no small matter. And I really hope that the people that are listening today will go back and review these different remarks, but also search your heart and figure out ways in which you can become increasingly more invested in building towards social justice.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Once again, thank you to every single presenter that was here today. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. Thanks for everyone who stayed for more than one panel. And thanks for everyone who has the intention to join our YouTube channel and to go through and watch those videos that we have uploaded already and that we will continue to upload. I could not be any more happy or any more proud of the effort and even the result of what came in over 8 days. So if we can do this in 8 days, imagine what we can do in the next month, right? So
Yes.
thank you one last time. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being a part of this. And thank you for getting into some good trouble with us.
Thank you.
for putting it on.
Everyone.
Are we leaving the meeting? Yep. Okay.